Hey guys, Coach Justin from Ultimate Baseball Training, and in today's video, we're going to get into the beginner's guide to hitting a baseball. And we're going to go over the fundamentals of the swing that you need to master before you ever start worrying about how to hit home runs or advanced movement patterns or anything else like that. I think it's so important to master the fundamentals and the basics, right? Before you get caught up in the latest training gizmos and gadgets and philosophies and everything like that, you need to master the fundamentals. And in fact, that's how professional players got to that point in the first place, is they mastered the fundamentals. And that's what they go back to whenever they're in a slump. Hitting coaches, what do? They go back to the fundamentals. So I think it's very important that you understand the fundamentals of hitting. And without further ado, let's just jump right into the beginner's guide to hitting a baseball. All right, the first place that I want you to start is on the batting tee, because if you can't hit a stationary object, then how do you expect to hit a moving object? I think a lot of players get in trouble when they just hop in the cage and start hitting regular batting practice before they've mastered the fundamentals. So start with your basic old batting tee. Now, the first part in hitting is getting into a comfortable stance. So I want you to make sure that you understand that the stance is simply a starting position. Now, I don't care if you start, the most traditional way to start is what's called square. So my feet are square to the pitcher. I don't care if you start square or slightly open a little bit or slightly closed a little bit, okay? And I really don't care, as long as it doesn't cause other issues, if you start with your hands here or down here a little bit lower or higher or in here or back. It really doesn't matter. The stance is a starting point, and you need to get that through your head, because, you know, if there was such thing as a perfect stance, when you turned on a major league game and watched those guys on TV, they would all look the exact same way when they get in the batter's box, right? But they don't. It's all different. They all have, if you watch the lineup, they all have slightly of a different stance. But we're just going over the beginner's guide. So for most players, I would say, just as a general rule of thumb, you're going to start with that square stance that we just talked about. You can adjust accordingly, but just for basics, start with a square stance. And you want to start with your feet a little bit wider than shoulder width. We want to have a wide base, an athletic base, similar to if we're playing, you know, defense in basketball, linebacker in football. If you just jump up in the air and land, you're going to land in an athletic position like that. That's a pretty good starting position, all right? So we have our feet slightly wider than shoulder width, and from there, I want you with your lower half to have a little bit of movement, okay? A little bit of movement with your lower half and your upper body, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I want you to have movement for two reasons. Number one, if you get in the batter's box and your legs are completely still and your hands are completely still like this, and you're still as a statue, that is going to cause you to tense up. Your grip's going to tense up, your shoulders are going to tense up, everything's going to tense up. And we all know that tense muscles, tight muscles, are slow muscles. Loose muscles are fast muscles. That's what we want. So we want to keep our body loose and relaxed for that reason. Number two, though, the second reason why you want to have a loose stance and have a little bit of rhythm and movement is because an object in motion tends to stay in motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. So if we're still like a statue, we are adding in an additional step to our swing because we have to overcome inertia and get that our body going, right? But if we just have a little bit of movement, nothing crazy and nothing huge with a bat wiggle or anything, but if we just have a little bit of movement, a little bit of rhythm, that's going to help with our timing, and it's going to help us get to a great contact position and have more success at the plate. So we've got our good solid stance with our lower half. We got a little bit of movement. Now with our hands, a general rule of thumb is your hands about shoulder height, okay? Generally, I don't want to see them too in here, like too forward towards the pitcher, or too back like this. And I don't think it's, for most hitters, a good idea to start down here or way up here. So start about shoulder height. And I think another rule of thumb is place the handle of your bat on your neck, knob facing the catcher, and then lift up just a couple inches, and that's going to be a really, really good starting point, okay? Last thing I want to touch on, make sure you're athletic, your knees have some flex to them. We don't want to hit with straight legs like this. We don't want them to be like this either. We want to have a little bit of flex in our knees, be in an athletic position, ready to go. All right, so now let's get into your load. So we're in our comfortable stance. The load is your first movement, okay? And the load, you have to understand that the load is simply a weight shift back. We're picking up our front foot and obviously all the weight's going to go to our backside, but it's really just we're gathering ourselves. We're loading as the pitcher kind of winds up for his delivery to the plate. We are winding up, we are loading our body so that we can eventually stride towards him and start our swing. But the load is a timing mechanism. Too many young players think that the load is a source of power. So you see them get the giant leg kicks and stuff. The load does not supply the power. That's why you see some great hitters who don't even really have a load. They do like a toe tap or a very small load and stride, because that's not your main source of power at all. So your load is a timing mechanism. So all you're gonna do, you're in your comfortable stance. When the pitcher goes into his windup, I always like to teach dance with the pitcher. So when you're dancing with someone, obviously you want to have rhythm. They move one way, you want to move that same way. So when the pitcher starts his motion, okay, that's kind of when you want to start your motion, and you go into your load. And we want to make sure we're loading against our backside here, my back leg, against that, not over it, because for two reasons. That is not a balanced position. And also watch how much, if I do this, watch how much my head moves, right? So we want to load against our backside, and we're just loading our lower half. It's just a gather with our lower half. We're not pushing our hands back or loading our hands. That's gonna happen naturally when we stride. But for this part, our hands are staying in the same spot. We're gathering our weight against our backside. The last point I want to make about the load is it has to be smooth, right? It's a timing mechanism, and same with dancing, right? You need to be smooth with it. You can't be herky-jerky, really fast and load and stride. It has to be some rhythm. Watch how smooth a guy like Robinson Cano looks when he's going into his load and stride and throughout his entire swing, right? So have some rhythm, and the load is simply a timing mechanism and a weight shift back. One other quick thing on the load. This is something that nobody hardly ever talks about, is shoulder tilt. So a lot of young players, what I see them do is they load and they're in a position like this after they load, and their front shoulder's up in the air. What we actually want, I'm gonna put the bat here so my shoulders are pretty much level now. What we actually want is when we go into our load, our front shoulder is actually going to be down like this. Okay, so my front shoulder is lower than my back shoulder. It's not extreme, but it's a little bit lower than my back shoulder. And then that's gonna help create an axis for us to swing around, so that then when we swing, we get to the point of contact, okay? When we get to the point of contact, our shoulders are gonna switch. My front shoulder is gonna be higher, my back shoulder is gonna be lower. But that's something to pay attention to, is that shoulder tilt. When you go into your load, just make sure you have that tilt down, your front shoulder's a little bit lower than your back. All right, so now we've loaded and strided. Now is when the swing actually starts. So I load, I stride, and the swing actually starts. If you pay attention to my front foot, it landed 45 degrees open. When that front heel drops, you can also think of it like your front heel's going down and your back heel's actually coming up like this, replacing your heels. That's a great way to put it. But we load and we stride, and our swing starts when that front heel drops. When that front heel drops, my hips, you'll automatically start to notice that they're starting to rotate, okay? And already my back knee is already beginning to come forward, and I'm beginning to have that weight basically on the inside part of my back toe, okay? So my heel drops, and what you should really feel is that separation again, and you should literally feel your hips and your lower half almost pulling the bat through the zone, right? It shouldn't be you load and you stride and you have to consciously try to hack at the ball like that. It really should be natural. Once you get to this good launch position with separation, that heel drops, everything else kind of automatically pulls the bat through the zone. One thing I want you to pay attention to, watch my back knee and my knob at the same time. So I'm gonna load, stride, that heel drops. Look how they're moving at the exact same rate, okay? That's something you wanna pay attention to. The heel drops in the front, and then the back heel rises, and that knee starts going forward, and the knob starts going at the same time. This would be a great thing for you to work on to get that sequencing. Your body has to work together. I also can't stress the importance of staying connected enough. What I mean by staying connected is we want throughout our entire swing, load, stride, our swing starts, we want everything in here tight to our body. So my back elbow here is gonna drop into a slot here, and we want everything tight in here to our body. You'll see my bat, like the shaft of my bat is pretty close to my shoulder here. This is what we want. This is a powerful position. The reason why we want to stay connected as opposed to getting out here like this is because when we are connected and in here, we're strongest, okay? So when we get to the contact point, we want everything to be, our arms to be in here like this, not out here like this. This is chasing, this is no bat control, this is no power. This is a strong, powerful position. So stay connected. And one other thing that's so important throughout your entire swing, I can't stress this enough either, this is something that's not talked about nearly enough. The distance between your elbows needs to stay the same distance throughout your entire swing. So what I mean by that, let's say this is my stance here, okay? This is the way that I start. You'll see the angle that both my elbows make, right? We never want, whether it's in our load or our stride or our swing itself, we want those elbows to remain the same distance apart the entire swing until way after contact when we get into a powerful position with our arms out here like this for extension. But throughout the entire swing, we want our elbows to stay the same distance apart. So we don't start here like this and then all of a sudden in our swing tuck in this elbow, or we don't start here and then all of a sudden raise this elbow and flare it out like this. That's just obviously going to result in bad habits and not the result that you're looking for on the field. But I promise you, this is a game changer for me when I consciously focus on, okay, I start with my elbows here and I'm going to keep them there swing. Even when I get to the point of contact, they're still in that same position. Man, that's really going to help you out. Now let's talk about what you should look like at the point of contact when you actually hit the baseball. So we got a good comfortable stance, we go into our load and our stride, we get to a good solid launch position, right? And everything is working in sequence, we're staying connected, our elbows are staying the same distance apart. And when we get to the point of contact, you should look something like this. There's a few things I want to point out. First thing, let's talk about our hands. If you look at my hands, they're palm up, palm down here, meaning with my top hand, it's palm up, and with my bottom hand, it's palm down. This is the position you want to be in regardless of where the pitch is, because if I don't get palm up, palm down, that's not a powerful position, and that's not a powerful position either. So we want to stay palm up, palm down. Another thing that you'll notice when I go through my swing at the contact point, my barrel of my bat is actually below my hands. And this again does not change. A lot of players try to keep their, barrel above their hands like this, and no professional hitter looks like this at the point of contact, right? No matter if it's a low pitch, even if it's lower than what's here, boom, the barrel's still lower. Even if it's a high pitch, boom, my slightly lower, okay? Now let's talk about your eyes. Obviously, you want your eyes on the baseball at the point of contact. That's the most important part of hitting, is seeing the baseball. Your front leg. I just had a player send me a swing when at the point of contact, his front leg was bent like this. That's not a powerful position. What's going to generate the most force behind the baseball is, obviously we get in that launch position, it goes from being flexed or being bent to eventually, boom, we want to hit against what's called a firm front side. So that front leg is going to completely straighten out. We're actually going to have, we're going to be pretty much on the, we've got a good bend here with this back side here. So that's pretty much it for your lower half. Your knees are pinching together. Obviously, remember, we want to have our elbows be that same distance apart. So we're palm up, palm down. We want to have a good L shape right here as well. But those are the things, the keys that you should look for when you get to the contact point. And that brings me to my last point. I want to talk about contact points, because we don't hit every single pitch location. We don't hit every single pitch in the same spot, right? So for a middle pitch, right? Middle pitch, you're going to want to strike that ball about even with your front foot, okay? Out in front of the plate, pretty much even with your front foot right there. And your goal with that pitch is to hit it right back up the middle, right? The pitcher dictates where we hit the ball. So middle pitch, we're driving it right back up the middle. Now let's move this tee to the inside pitch. You'll notice I not only moved it inside, but I moved it up, because on an inside pitch, we're going to pull our hands in. We are pulling that ball, okay? We're not going to try to keep our hands in here like this and dink it the other way. The only time we're going to manipulate something is maybe on a hit and run. But for the most part, right? And then last contact point is the away pitch. And obviously for all these, you have high pitches, middle pitches, low pitches. The away pitch, I moved that a little bit further back because with the away pitches, you're actually gonna let the ball travel a little bit deeper. In the grand scheme of things, you're still gonna make contact with the ball out in front of the plate. You're not gonna hit it way back here like this, but you're gonna hit that one a little bit deeper and hit it to the opposite field. The last part of the swing is extension, and this is something that a lot of hitters shouldn't really worry about. All you should worry about is driving through the ball. That should be your mindset, because if you do everything right in the first half of the swing and you're in a good position at the point of contact, then extension is going to naturally happen kind of on its own. The biggest things you want to avoid, we don't want to stop at contact, and at contact, we don't want to roll our wrists and get flippy like this, because the reason why is I'm on plane with the pitch here, but as soon as I get flippy after contact, my bat is immediately off plane with the pitch, and if my timing is a little off, I'm gonna miss. So focus on getting into a good extension position. This is something similar to what it should look like, into a good, making a V shape with my arms here. That's the point that you want to get to. But the biggest thing to focus on is drive through the ball, don't stop at contact, and really just try throughout your entire swing. We want to get our bat on plane with the pitch as early as possible, so I'm on plane right there, and then stay, boom, ideal point of contact, stay on plane with the pitch for as long as possible before we pull off the ball. But that's extension, and that's the swing in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I have a Bat Speed Boosters free workout that I want to share with you. All you have to do to grab this free Bat Speed workout, just click on that very first link below this video in the description. That'll take you to a page. I'm just going to need your email address, and then I'll grant you access to the Bat Speed Boosters workout. So go ahead and click that link and do that now. Go pick up your free Bat Speed Boosters workout. And as always, if you're not already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're coming out with new baseball videos every single week. If you enjoyed this video, leave me a thumbs up, and last thing, get in the comments section and let me know what you'd like to see in future videos on the channel. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.